Good morning, traders, and happy hump day. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for April 16th, 2025. Well, boy, yesterday was something else. We opened up the day with a bit of uncertainty, and well, nothing happened. We went through the choppiest day, just a resting day in the market yesterday, which honestly was probably good for the market to have that resting day and maybe get rid of a little bit of that volatility in the market. However, it could also be just that uncertainty about coming into the economic numbers that we have this morning. So before we get into that, how about we jump in and let's take a look at what happened overnight. First off, Asian markets mostly lower last night. Australia down modestly, only 0.4%. Nikkei fell 1.1%. India was higher on the day by 0.5%. South Korea was modestly lower. Hong Kong falling 1.91%, the tech-heavy sector over there. And Shanghai modestly higher by, $8.34. If we take a look at European markets, here this morning, well, they have reversed to a little bit of bearishness today. DAX is down 99 points, FTSE's down 27 points, and the CAC is lower by 42 here at the moment. U.S. futures are also showing just a little bit of bearishness this morning. We've got the Dow futures right at this moment down 83 points. S&P 500 futures down 42 points, and the NASDAQ futures are taking it the worst, down 273 points here at the moment. What's happening with that? Well, first off, we've got NVIDIA reporting that they're going to record a $5.5 billion write-down, a charge. So a big bill that they're taking this quarter. And then we have ASML missing, their expectations for chip orders and things like that. So things kind of shaking up here just a little bit on the tech side, maybe adding a little bit of worry as we head into some of these retail numbers this morning. Let's take a look at what we've got going in oil. Oil this morning, XLE, you can see the producers here trying to push up a little tiny bit, and we've got oil futures trying to move just a little bit higher this morning as well. 47 cents a barrel at 61.80 a barrel. Brent crude is also higher, coming in at 65.21 a barrel. Natural gas, on the other hand, well, not so much. Natural gas is down a little over 6 cents here today, continuing that slide here on UNG. Let's take a look at what we've got going on here in cryptos this morning. Cryptos started the day yesterday doing pretty well, and then ended up reversing the day, having kind of a rough one. Bitcoin this morning is following through a little bit to the downside, at least at the moment, down $158 a coin, and Ether also just a little bit lower by $27 a coin, and mostly red across those cryptos here this morning. If we take a look at our bond prices are a little bit lower here this morning. We have our 2-year bonds coming in at 3.82%, the 10-year bonds 4.33%, and the 30-year bonds 4.79%. There seems to be a little bit of worry in the bond market for the retail sales number coming up. We'll talk about that in a moment. If we take a look at precious metals here this morning, well, we've got gold moving higher and sharply higher, up $80 an ounce this morning in the futures, $3,320 an ounce. Big pop there on gold. Silver also moving to the upside here, showing that little bit of fear here in the market. Silver popping up 61, almost 62 cents an ounce to 32.91 an ounce. Copper this morning is just a tiny little bit lower. If we take a look at COPX, pulling back just a little bit, but we've got platinum and palladium just slightly higher here this morning. So kind of an interesting morning setting up. So how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Wednesday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at these index charts, see if we can't find a way to plan our day with a little bit of recognition of the actual condition of the indexes. First off, I know everyone really wants the market to just run back up, and I understand that. But we do have to recognize the fact that we are running into some fairly significant price resistance areas in the chart, and we still have that downtrend here to be dealing with in diamonds. And I mentioned yesterday that possibility that we could fade back, retest some lows. I'm not suggesting we go all the way down to here necessarily, but we could pull back. We could easily test areas here in the chart, maybe even a little bit lower, to test some of these support areas over here in the diamonds. But it's really going to be dependent on the data, whether or not those bulls engage or those bears have their way again with the market. So if the bulls can find some inspiration here, you can see we gapped down this morning, and in the pre-market, we're already trying to pump that back up here on the diamonds. If we can get something going here, well, you can see it up here. It's pretty simple. We need to see if we can break through that area right there. We're struggling with the top of that big white candle here, that reversal day in the market. And if we can get through there, that next level right up in here into that price resistance in the chart, and then we're going to be facing down this downtrend in the diamonds. So watch that closely. And if the bears have anything to say, you can see where we gapped down here this morning. We're coming down close here to that little area right there of price support. If that were to fail today, then I'm looking down into here as that next level of price support. And then beyond that, we're probably looking at the big area of price support over here in the chart for that next level of price support. If we take a look at our moving averages, well, we can see our problems here technically. 50 about ready to cross down through the 200-day. Our short-term moving average is 20, 34, and 34 down here, creating a zone of resistance right through this area that we'll want to be paying pretty close attention to. And of course, if we do draw back down toward that 50 or 500-day moving average, remember that's a fairly normal situation in the market. We like to retest lows before we get too excited about moving on higher. So not a big surprise. If we take a look at the SPY, also struggling with price resistance up here. And one thing that I think is pretty notable here in the SPY so far is we haven't been able to get back up here and even test the high of that reversal candle. Can't seem to get up there. So if those bulls have anything to say here today, then we'll want to be watching this closely. If they can push off of this gap down here this morning and push up, we need to get back up here and start testing this resistance in the chart to see if we can break through the last couple of days of resistance, and then see if we can break through up here and maybe progress up to that big reversal day high. And that's going to push us right up into this downtrend and right up into the price resistance here. So kind of that double whammy of price resistance in the chart if we can get enough energy to push up there. And we certainly have the data today that could maybe do that for us if we get some really good numbers. Now, if the bears have anything to say here today, we've already tested this area of price support here this morning, and if that were to fail, then I think that possibility, you can see how we can tie all of these candles here together. Nice little support area here. We might come in and test that area. And if that were to fail, well, I'm going to suggest we're coming back down into there, which of course is an area of price support in the SPY. So watch that closely. Technically here, again, pretty rough situation. We've got the 50 already down through the 200. Pretty rough situation, and we've got a zone of resistance right through this area with our shorter term moving averages creating some technical issues for us that we need to find some answers here in the market to get those bulls engaged. If we take a look at QQQ, very much the same here as the SPY. Unfortunately, QQQ, we did rally all the way back up here, almost testing that downtrend in here, and you can see we're running into fairly significant level of price resistance. Once again, we haven't been able in the last several days to get back above that reversal candle high in here. So if those bulls can really get something going here today, we need to start progressing back up through these areas of resistance and then see if we can deal with that reversal candle high and then the downtrend here as well. Now, if those bears have anything to say in the market, there certainly is that possibility of that pushback here by the bears and maybe pushing back down into this area of price support, and then beyond that right down into here. So watch that carefully if those bears get going. Our IWM continues to suffer here quite a bit. We have not been able to really progress enough to get back up here and test that big reversal candle. We tried yesterday to take a look at it and then ended up rejecting, pushing that back down. So if the bulls have any energy here today, we need to push back up through these areas of resistance to see whether or not we can test that and maybe break on through. But even if that were to occur, we've got a lot of work to get back up here to this downtrend in the chart. So hopefully we have some really good bullish data in here that could give that a push. Unfortunately, we have already tested this area of price support here this morning in the gap down or overnight, and you can see that possibility. If those bears have anything to say, we might be down here testing this level, and past that point there's not much here that can hold us. Get these little tails down in here, but we could move back down here and retesting these lows. And you want to keep in mind here, technically we're still well below our 500-day moving average on the Russell. A massive area of technical resistance forming up right here in this area of the chart, so watch that carefully. Now if we take a look at our VIX here this morning, our VIX did get a little bit of a resting pullback yesterday. Just kind of rested a little bit, pulled back, came back and tested these highs here of support, and then ended up bouncing right into the close just a little bit. I think it's that worry of the data today. So we'll want to watch that pretty carefully here. Looking at the chart, you can see we've got this upside trend in here. And although we broke that just a tiny bit yesterday, we did try and recover it there at the end of the day. If the bears have anything to say today, you can certainly see that possibility that we might push back up, maybe test some resistance areas in here, or then right on up to this area of the chart. And by the way, that runs right back here to that closing high in the VIX. So we'll want to watch that. Remember, We're running around 30 handles in the VIX. That means our option prices are pretty expensive. It means we pay more for premium. It means the bid-ask spreads are wide on those options. So be really, really careful in here. Let's take a look if the bulls have anything to say, though, and we can break back down below this area of support in the chart. I think that's going to relieve some pressure here, and market might feel a little bit better if we can get back down below that area. It might ease things up just a little bit. Let's take a look at our T20s. Now, our T21-22 yesterday was moving around here quite a bit in the chart, and we whipsawed up here. We moved up pretty sharply early in the day, and then ended up pulling back here. We kind of respected this little downtrend in here, started to pull back a little bit. Nothing terrible occurred here, though. Didn't really seem to be any kind of panic, any kind of major fear, although we did pull back. So you can see we're kind of getting close here to the middle of the road here. If the bulls can find inspiration in that data today, then we certainly have that open space up here, pretty substantial open space, that we could move on up if we can get those bulls inspired. Of course, we want to also keep in mind if those bears are inspired, as they are so far this morning, that possibility, we've opened a pretty big opportunity back to the downside because of this substantial run up in this relief rally. Now let's take a look at our T2108. Unfortunately, our T2108 really didn't make any progress yesterday. Kind of flat coming up in here, maybe testing some resistance in the chart, and then just kind of rolled over flat here. We've got about 16%, just a touch over 16% of the stocks holding above their 40-day moving average, still underneath price resistance levels. So if the bulls have anything to say today, we need to break up through there and then start testing some of these levels up here. Of course, we have this downtrend here that's also going to come into play in T2108, so watch that carefully. If the bears have anything to say, you can see we've got some support levels down in here that we could test, and then that possibility that we could come right on down here to test these lows as well if they really get going in the chart. T2107 also little bit flat yesterday. You can see had just a tiny little rise in there, less than 20% of the stocks above their 200-day moving average. You can see we've got a pretty good potential to push to the upside if the bulls find inspiration, pushing back up into here, mid-20s area, and then pushing on higher in the chart to come up into this downtrend. So we've got a lot of work that could be done here on T2107 if those bulls can find some inspiration. If the bears, however, find some, as we're seeing a little bit in the pre-market here, we might come back down and test some of these areas of the chart in T2107. And our T2101, unfortunately, we ended the day with a little bit of bearishness, so I'm not really sure where to assign this breadth to. Yesterday we had that bullish breadth going early in the day, but then we faded it out. You can see we did push up in the breadth here today, so a little bit more activity. Remember, we are still in the blackout period. As companies report, they start to slip out from under that blackout period, but we have to recognize the fact that the majority of stocks still can't do any corporate buyback activity or anything like that to influence the market. So watch that carefully here. With the bears coming in strongly today, my fear is that we could see breadth continue with the bears to stretch on higher. So watch that closely here today. Let's take a look at our economic calendar here for today. In our economic calendar, we've got a few things to be paying attention to. This morning, we're going to get those mortgage applications, so keep an eye on that. In fact, let me refresh this. Yeah, we already got it. Let's take a look. Mortgage applications coming in pretty ugly here, falling to a negative 8.8 down from 20. Purchase index falling to a negative 4.9 from a 9.2, and refinance index falling to a negative 12.4 here from that high 35 last time. So watch that carefully here today. We've got retail sales coming up here this morning. Probably the most notable report here this morning could be market moving. Right now they're suggesting that the retail sales month over month increased to 1.4. We'll see. If there's a chance of something missing, I think it could be in here on retail sales. So watch that one. If we come in strong, that could be a good thing for the market, and we could get those bulls engaged. So watch that carefully. We've got X vehicles month over month looking for a 0.3, flat from last time, and just a little bit lower on X vehicles and gas by 1/10. If we take a look at what we've got going on past that, we've got industrial production numbers. They're looking at those industrial production numbers to decline here from a 0.7 to a negative 2, 0.9 on the manufacturing output to a 0.2, and you can see capacity utilization. They're expecting that to decline just slightly, and shouldn't be a major surprise after seeing some of the manufacturing numbers that we've been seeing lately. Business inventories, they're expecting those month over month to decline just a little bit to a 0.2 from a 0.3. And we've got housing market numbers in here, and they're expecting that to move down one tick from a 39 to a 38 on the housing market index. Past that, we've got a petroleum status number in here. We've got a 4-week and a 20-year bond auction. We've got Hammock speaking at noon, and then at 1:30 Eastern, we're going to have Jerome Powell speaking. So remember, always got to pay attention when the big guy talks. He can move the market. And then if we look down here, we've got Schmidt after the bell today. We've got coming in here for our last trading day of the week on Thursday, housing starts and permits, jobless claims, Philly Fed. So as you're planning forward, think about those kind of things. Some bond auctions in here, and then we're going to be slipping into the holiday, Good Friday, and the market will be closed. Let's take a look at our our earnings calendar here for today. In our earnings calendar, we do have a bit more for us to be paying attention to on those earnings. Let's take a look here. We've got, once you grab a screenshot of this, a few more earnings this morning, and we're starting to pick up those numbers. In fact, we pick up even more tomorrow with more earnings numbers. So we could get a little bit more volatility, and it could be bullish or bearish depending on how they report. Let's take a quick look at these here this morning. Abbott Labs reporting today. Looks like they had a little bit of a push down and trying to rally back. So watch that carefully. I don't see any change in that chart. Still in a downtrend, but trying to get something going here in the pre-market. ASML, little gap lower here this morning. ALV getting a nice little pop, pushing up into that downtrend. Might be worth keeping an eye on that. CFG maybe a little bit lower, not much change there. FHN, nothing happening here yet this morning, probably hasn't reported. PLD, tiny little bit higher. Travelers Insurance getting a nice pop here to the upside. That could change this chart just a little bit, breaking through some resistance up here. We'll want to watch this bigger area resistance, but nice little pop there on Travelers and USB here this morning. Trying to move just a tiny little bit higher. Regional banks seem to be struggling here quite a bit at the moment. This afternoon, really quick, we've got Alcoa, we've got OZK, we've got CSX, we've got FNB, we've got FR. HOMB will be reporting, LBRT, REXR, SFNC, SLG, SNV, and TFIN will kind of bring up the last of the day here in those notable earnings reports. So kind of keep an eye on those today. let's take a look at some stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if you could do me that quick favor, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, please click that subscribe button on YouTube. Also click that bell icon when it pops up. That helps the channel a ton when you do that. And when you click that thumbs up button and leave a brief comment and engage with the video, that helps about as much as anything. Thank you so much for everyone who does that. Thank you so much for everyone who shares these videos out on your social media feed, does that repost. I really appreciate that. And also thanks to everyone who supports the channel through the Buy Me a Coffee link. Truly, truly appreciate that. You guys are awesome. Let's take a look at a few stocks that could be setting up. Remember, everyone, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security, and you need to do your own due diligence. This market is pretty wild. It's very volatile. It's one of those things that can set traps and just strip money out of your account really quickly. So make sure you're planning those trades carefully, that you're thinking critically about the risk of this market right now before you jump in on any trade. And before we get started with that, I want to remind everyone that all the stocks, and I brought this up yesterday, all the stocks that you're going to see here today are courtesy of Live Trading Alerts. I love this software. It is hands down the easiest thing to operate and easiest thing to run, and it just automatically delivers trades to you every single day the market's open. You just have to set up the scans that you want, turn it on, and it runs automatically. So if you haven't taken a look at Live Trading Alerts, I'd highly recommend jumping over here, grabbing yourself a free trial, checking it out, or better yet, just subscribe and get going with it, because it is a fantastic piece of software bringing you good quality trades. So let's take a look. We've got one of them that continued to come up yesterday as a possible alert, and what I use is the 3-8 trap in my trades. You can see pushing up and resting back here. That's one of the things I really love to see in a chart. Now, I do have to recognize the fact that this is going to report coming in here on the 29th. So you want to consider that carefully. But the way this is holding in here, if we can get any kind of bullishness to come into the market, I would look for that opportunity that might push on higher here. Keep an eye on Caesar's Palace showing some signs of bullishness here that we would want to be paying attention to. Take a look at MCK. MCK Healthcare continues to be a pretty strong area of the market. MCK did pull back a little bit yesterday. I think maybe we might catch a little bit of resting in here and then look for that next opportunity there on MCK to the upside. United Health doing the same thing. Nice little resting. Came up here, grabbed a hold of some resistance and went, well, we went a little bit too far. We need a bit of a rest here first before we attempt to break through that. So watch that carefully. Any rest or pullback in here could set up that next opportunity for that to push on through to the upside. I think that is definitely worth paying attention to. I don't exactly know what's going on here in gaming stocks, but gaming stocks still holding up pretty well. We've got EA breaking back through some resistance in the chart. You can see I had an alert over here on this chart. I was waiting to see if that was going to pop along this trend. Instead, we had, well, you know what happened. We had tariffs come into play, and we dipped that right back down. But notice how we've come right back up in here. And if this rests in here, if we can get any kind of a bullish move here in the market, look what I just drew there. I drew a pretty nice looking inverted head and shoulders pattern, and that could push on through to the upside. Watch that carefully. TTWO also has moved up sharply after the tariff thing here, pushing right into the recent price resistance. If this can hold up here now and rest a little bit, once again, there's that inverted head and shoulders pattern right in there that could set up, and we might push right on through on take two. So keep an eye on that. Also have to mention some of these aerospace and defense stocks for bullish potential trades. General Dynamics breaking this bottoming pattern in here, as you can see, pushing back up. Any rest or consolidation in here, I think, sets up that opportunity that could push right on through. LMT, Lockheed Martin, also trying to bottom in here just a little bit, pushed back up into this resistance of the chart. Again, yesterday we caught a little pullback in there, but you can see this morning we're popping up here trying to move a little bit higher. So I would watch that carefully here. I think there's every reason to believe that might be able to push right on through to the upside. Watch that carefully here in LMT. If we take a look at the moving averages on here, you can see that would be that break back above the 500-day. We've gotten back above the 50-day, holding in here, which creates that rounded bottom breakout pattern that we like here. So watch that carefully on LMT. And last, in that sector, take a look at Northrop Grumman. Northrop making a nice surge to the upside here, breaking through some resistance. Rest or pullback in here certainly could set up that opportunity to the upside. I would keep an eye on that. You might want to keep an eye on some of these big old dividend payers because they're holding prices pretty well. Verizon pushing back up through some resistance here in the chart. Obviously, we still have this downtrend and resistance above that we've got to deal with. But when the market gets worried, we start looking for safety and good dividend paying stocks. And right now, Verizon is something you might want to have on your list to keep an eye on it, because if this holds in here and we get that push to the upside, that's what I'd be looking for in that chart. Now, I'm holding AT&T, and I couldn't be happier here with AT&T. On the daily here, I do have a little bit of concern because this could be a higher low, a lower high coming into play here on AT&T. That would complete maybe a head and shoulders pattern to the downside. But I got to tell you, when I take a look at this on the weekly chart, that's exactly what I want to see. That is a really nice looking longer term hold. Good dividends in it. Watching that closely. I do have to pay attention to this because it's going to report on 4/23. That is going to be a pretty important for me to manage around, but watch that closely there in AT&T. Take a look at Nokia. Nokia making an interesting move back up here. We found this long-term trend and then zoomed right back up above some resistance here, creating a new area of support. So watch this carefully in Nokia. If that can hold in here, we might have that opportunity to push right on through to the upside. IBM made a pretty substantial run back to the upside, but I got to tell you guys, a lot of these tech stocks are still setting up in potential short patterns. Well, one of the rules that I follow is that we sell stocks or we short stocks at or near price resistance and trend. That's how you don't get caught in these pushes like this. When you come into price resistance and downtrend, stay away from the long trade in there. You want to be thinking about shorting. IBM not looking so good there. When I look at things like DKNG, that's a straight up short in the market. Pushed up into that downtrend resistance and starting to get that rollover. Take a look at Snap. Snap popped right up into that downtrend over here. Let me get my line fixed, straightened out here. We pushed right up into that downtrend, right up into price resistance here in the chart, and then we rolled over, not looking very good in there in those charts. And there are quite a few in the market right now showing those bearish patterns, including some of the big techs. When we look at Google and this rally back up, rally right into price resistance, right into that downtrend, and now we're catching that little bit of rollover here in the market. Meta still going through that trial. There's that pattern again, push right up into the downtrend. So be really careful here, guys. Be really careful. I know tech has been, it's been the flavor of the day for a long time. here, but we're still seeing bearish patterns coming into those trades. So be very, very careful of just zooming and racing right back into some of those big tech trades. Take a look at things like CVS instead. CVS setting up a pattern here. I placed alert on this. Nice little resting consolidation here above support. I know it's an old boring stock. It is a strong dividend payer, but watch that carefully here. That could have some bullishness coming here soon and a nice potential easy entry into that trade. So with that, guys, I'm running this video quite long. Y'all take care, be safe, have a wonderful day. I'll see you right back here Thursday morning. And as always, I wish you all the best.